Hello, welcome. I'm being told I'm live, but sometimes my eyes do deceive me, hence why I have glasses. But anyways, it's PSGL, PSF2 here today for Season 41, Round 6 at the wonderful Circuit de Barcelona de Catalunya. I'm Harry, and I'm alongside Alfie here today. Unfortunately, Nathan isn't present, but let's hope it is a great race either way.
Hello. Yeah, it's great to be here, to be fair. My first time in the commentary box this season, and it looks like it's been a pretty good season so far. So here in Barcelona for hopefully another great race. Harry.
Yeah, we're looking at 4 different winners in the opening 5 rounds. The only duplicate winner is Sam, who is in the Sauber here today. But even 2 wins can't stop the man leading the championship, White Sheep, who unfortunately, just like the typical lead commentator, isn't present. Therefore, let's see whether or not the likes of Sam or even Kevin Zonnebjerg can really bite into that championship lead of White Sheep. Sam's mathematically able to take the lead after this race as long as they bring home the race win. About Kevin Zonnebjerg, unfortunately as close as he can get is 2 points behind for Silverstone in a week's time. What's your predictions?
I think it's going to be a very tight affair. Obviously White Sheep the leader. It's got a pretty big gap in the standings at the moment with the PSGL point system, but one mistake and Sam and Zonnebjerg can be breathing down his neck going into Britain, so we're just going to have to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check the audio, so do ignore me. As you have got drivers heading out round the track now. For example, Sam, who I did just bring up a moment or so ago, how he can take the championship lead today if it can all go right. He's had a fairly up and down season. Of course, he won in Australia, which was the season opener, and he won a week ago in Austria, but he's had a DNF, a 9th and a 6th place on the way, which is fairly inconsistent form, especially comparing him to the likes of White Sheep and Zonnebjerg. Zonnebjerg's been a bit more fluctuative, but he's in general had some really weak races and really strong races. Then even Christian, who's 4th in the championship, he's only raced twice, but here for a 3rd attempt at scoring. My bad, he's actually raced 4 times, but he's only scored twice. As Sam is starting their lap up towards turn 1, there you go. As Thomas has just pointed out, White Sheep's present. Again, that's why I have glasses, but he said his pedals and wheel is damaged. So do expect a DNF across this race. But I'll hand it over to you, Alfie.
Right, so yeah, Sam currently the first one on the lap. Something I've noticed, which I see quite a few times in league racing, at least with the Sauber, is Sam's using the normal livery, and Salvo's got, I'm not sure which track it was they ran that, but it's a more carbon fibre livery with the paint splash kind of look. So I guess that's one way to tell them apart. But anyway, it seems like Sam's on a decent lap at the moment. Through sector 2 he goes, enables DRS now into this heavy braking zone, into the long sweeping left-hander as he enters sector 3. I think one of the most important things in a quali session is to make sure your banker goes well, so then you don't get nervous building up to your final run, because if your final run is your only chance to get a lap on the board, then there's a high chance that you might make a mistake and end up starting near the back. But it's a 1:11.788 for Sam, but the Aston Martin immediately going 3 times faster than him as the cars begin to cross the line to finish their bankers.
Yeah, quite a few quick laps being set in. Just ignore me as I'm having a hissy fit trying to find a driver on a lap. We're currently on board with Ivan, who's going past their teammate in terms of Sousa. It's been an okay first 2 sectors as White Sheep despite damaged facilities, he is still the quickest man out on track. But there's Ivan. He's dropped the rear end on the exit and therefore goes 10th fastest. Boom, just crossing the line to the 12.0. That could have gone so much worse than it had done. However, Zonneberg round the final corner up to the start-finish line. It's an amazing 42.0. You can definitely tell he backed off at some point as Sieb now crossing the line. It's a 1 minute 11.2 for the Mercedes. Then it's Nick rounding that final corner. Can the Racing Bulls go to the top? They only go 14th. As then you have the likes of Pablo Sousa and Zane marching their way around the circuit. Zane heading into that final corner now. Can the McLaren match their teammate of Christian? Over the line, it's an 11.3.
Yeah, good luck there by Zane, putting him third. Sieber's the current pole sitter, but obviously still a long time left in the session. But that mistake that Ivan made in the Williams, definitely an easy one to make, touching just too much of that curb out the final corner. Something the drivers are going to definitely have to watch out for. But funnily enough, it still wasn't that slow, to be fair, or 114. As his teammate goes fourth there, does Sousa. So majority of the pack has been able to put in that important first lap that I was on about, as Benjamin's going to be one of the next ones to finish his first lap with 12 minutes remaining on the clock. As he comes down the hill through the penultimate corner, practically flat through the final one, uses the rest of his ERS, and across the line, Benjamin goes fifth.
Yeah, a decent lap by Benjamin. As a whole, though, the Sauber's not looking too competitive. As Pablo is entering the pits, this is the stage where most drivers come in, put a new set on, and then go back underway.
Right, so having a little quiet moment now with most people into the pits now. You got Mathers in the Aston Martin, who has just came out onto the track, so he'll be beginning a lap soon. But most people just enter the pits after their bankers, and will probably go out for another one, maybe into their final runs. At least that's what I would do. But I'm not PSF2 driver material, so I might be wrong. But everyone has set a competitive lap except for Ivan Zunneberg and Tiago in the Ferrari. As the Aston Martin makes his way through the final sector now to begin his second lap. Currently in 7th is Mathers Gullet, I think that is. And he comes around the final corner now, and he will begin his lap, enabling DRS across the line. As he uses quite a lot of ERS down to turn 1. Hopefully he doesn't get too much traffic as the Williams slides out the way. Gets a good bit of the curbs in turn 1 and 2. And progresses through the long sweeping right-hander before getting to this tricky section at the start of Sector 2 as he leaves Sector 1 up on his current best time. Mathers is a reserve and has only raced in one of the 5 rounds we've had so far, with him competing in round 4, which he DNF'd in. So hopefully he can put that DNF right here in Spain as he enters Sector 3, a 10th up. With PSGL F2 being so close, that gives him a chance to go up a handful of positions in this qualifying session. Only one more corner to negotiate. Did look a little loose as he touched the inside curb, which could have sent him around like we saw it, Ivan, but it doesn't, and he's able to go P2, which is a very good lap indeed for the Aston Martin, as his teammate starts the lap as well, as well as a few others who are coming out to start their laps now, and almost the entire grid is coming out for their second laps now. Salvo in the Sauber, with the splashed paint looking livery, currently down in 12th, so not looking too good for Sauber. The Swiss team, who are currently, where are they in the standings? They are currently, am I blind? Where's Sauber? Currently third in the championship. So not too bad for Sauber at the moment. But Salvo was not able to improve on that lap. As we'll watch Sam now. He was currently just behind his teammate in 13th. He negotiates his way through the final corners. Sam across the line goes 5th. A much better lap for Sam, who was 2nd in the championship, getting Sauber majority of their points, it seems like, with Salvo being a reserve who has raced a few times this season in Belgium, America and Monaco, I think that is. But hopefully he can have a half decent race with Sauber today, as most of the grid is on their laps at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. I've just seen Indigo also say, "How are you?" I'm doing well. What about you, Alfie?
Ticho in the Ferrari goes 2nd there. That's a good lap by him coming out of nowhere. But Zunderberg goes 3rd as well. But yeah, I'm good. Tiago in the final sector now. But yeah, yeah, I'm excited for the rest of this quality session and the race. But as Tiago just comes around the final few corners now, and he's going to be the final driver to get a competitive lap onto the timing sheets as he crosses the line, and it's good enough for 6th. So good qualifying session for the Ferrari so far.
Yeah, especially with them down in 8th in the constructors at the moment. They've only scored 31 points so far this season, joint 7th with Alpine. 2nd and 6th really does look good, as you enjoy the race too, Indigo. As Benjamin has started, I believe it's a secondary push. He aborted the first one, so they are trying to rectify their mistakes, whilst their teammate Ben, unironically both same name, in the same team, diving into the pits as White Sheep, goes to provisional pole in the session with an amazing 111.0 so far.
Yeah, good lap there by White Sheep. Will anyone get into the 110s? We're going to have to see in the next few minutes, as the Aston Martin of how do you pronounce his name?
I'd say Mattis. I'm not the best spoken of persons.
I'm not very good at pronouncing names either, to be fair, especially usernames. But we'll go with Mattis as he makes his way through the first sector, currently in 6th. And as I was saying, the reserves only made one of the race this season. So hopefully he can make this one a good one, as he, with him being a reserve, doesn't get the chances as much or as frequently as you would as a full-time driver. As he comes to the end of sector 3 now, what's it looking like for him? He is up going into the final sector, so let's see what he can do.
Yeah, it's only 84 thousandths, it's not much, but then if you look at the gap between them and Benjamin, it's only 77 thousandths, so currently it could be a lap for the top 3 as they round out the final corner. What will it be for Mattis? It will be a 111.1, and that is just what he needed, a full 10th up on the spot. I don't think I've seen anyone that pinpointed in terms of a delta, but the reserve for the Aston Martin team, definitely giving it their absolute all, while Salvo having a little bit of a trip into the grass on the entry of turn 5, only on their outlap, just showing that the Sauber could maybe be under a bit of pressure, especially in P19 with the latter phase of qualifying coming round the corner now. Benjamin into the pits. Mattis, you'd anticipate, is also making their journey into the pits so they can get a fresh set on and get back out for the final 3 minutes and 15 sessions. 15 sessions, you know what I mean, in this qualifying session.
Yeah, and we'll get a little bit of a quiet moment when there's not many drivers on the track, but Salvo stopping it from being complete tumbleweeds as he begins another lap. He's currently down in 19, so he needs to improve using 40% of his ERS down into turn 1, gets a good bit of those sausage curbs and a big bit of that second curb as well, which is the best line through there. Hugs the inside of the right hander as he goes into the Santander advertising board, currently up, so he's going to want to keep up this progress throughout the rest of the lap, using more ERS here and there as he goes into the hairpin in third gear to make sure he gets enough traction out of the corner. Now through, I'd say, one of the trickiest corners, so easy to go wide or get over still or wheel spin on the exit, but he manages it pretty well as he enables DRS users a large amount of his ERS. At the end of sector 2, he's almost 2 times up, but he touches the grass on the entry and that sends him massively wide, and that might have cost him all the time he just gained there.
Yeah, he's heading up to the final 2 corners, as you can just see on your track map in the bottom right hand side of your screen. It is starting to flood out on track as Salvo has backed off at the very last moment to go 2 seconds down. Even though there was an improvement, he thinks he can do better with the latter half. So let's try and find the man at the front of this queue. It is Zane with, I believe, Wrestle about to start a flyer. No, it's in fact your current man on provisional pole, White Sheep. So let's ride on board with them as they are sporting the Japanese livery, just giving a bit of fluorescent pink to illuminate this Spanish circuit as they go through turn 3. A long, hard right-hander is quite heavy on the tyre load, I'll say, as there's 25 thousandths up, then chucking it into turn 4, riding that grass quite heavily, trying to use the every last inch of this circuit, fighting the car through turn 5, fighting back onto the power. Salvo is out and White Sheep backing off with the yellow flag. So Zane next in the McLaren. Do they also back off? I believe they have. No, they're in fact going straight back up into overtake mode to try and limit the deficit made by running in none, as they are continuing to relentlessly push round this Barcelona circuit. Can they do just like the football club and go for the top, as they're currently only 17 thousandths up? At the moment it's only looking at 10th, which would overtake the man in P2 in this championship of Sam, fighting that car as they now get the power back down for probably the last time this lap. Round the final corner, battery being deployed to absolute nil over the line, and it's only P6 with an 11.2, but the checker flag's out. Tiago takes third with Pablo crossing the line to go 12th. You've got T-Show who's crossing the line in the Ferrari now to go 4th. A good session so far, with Christian up next in the McLaren as you ride on board with Ivan. Christian doesn't improve as Ivan crossing the line to go 17th after invalidating their lap. Ben over the line 14th. Mattia Manga in the Aston Martin. Can they find any time in that Aston? Only 11th fastest here, with Benjamin up next. They aren't finding much time whatsoever, so we'll funnel over to Sieb, who's 1,000ths up in the first 2 parts. Over the line, it's provisional pole with White Sheep now on their last attempt for pole here. Can they do it? They've spun they've gone round in the Haas. A big upset for the American team, as it'll be second on the grid for White Sheep here today. A big hurt to their title, as it will be the Mercedes of Sieb on pole. So here is your starting grid for the race. It's IRT Sieb in the Mercedes who grabs pole here, followed by the other Dutchman of White Sheep to make it a lovely Dutch front row. As then it's Souza in third, Tiago fourth, making it Ferrari 4-5 with Tisho in fifth, Mattis sixth, Zonneberg seventh, Benjamin eighth, Zane ninth, Nick in 10th, Matthew Manga, Christian, Sam in 13th, Pablo 14th, Ben 15th, then it's Vessel, Boom, Ivan, Salvo and Diogo Silva. But boy oh boy, that has been one hectic qualifying session. Do not go anywhere because the race is up. But Alfie, what's your thoughts on that?
Wow, what drama at the end there. White Sheep backing out of his first final lap, I guess you could say. I mean, to be fair, I didn't know if he was backing out from the yellow flags. I thought he backed out because he made a mistake in the hairpin. It looked like he got a bit of the grass on the entrance, and that kind of made his car look a bit pear-shaped into the corner. But anyway, makes another mistake on his final lap, and pole position snatched from his hands. But let's see what happens in this race. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I can guarantee you the title leader kicking himself over and over as a result. That is not a mistake you want to be making when you've had 3 second places this season. That is a 60% second place rate, which just shows he is quite good at bottling events. But if you think about it, in Kota he won on track, got a post-race penalty to go second and grant Kevin Zonneberg that win. In Monaco, he just walked through the field with it. And in Austria, he came second to one of their own title rivals of Sam. So, an ultra competitive front end, as it's of course that Mercedes on pole. You've got 33 laps as the lights now flicking up one by one. They're all up. They're now gone. The drivers all underway nice and well. Currently, no real spin across the field as Sheep has got the better of starts. The Haas is ahead. Debris flying all over in the background, but it'll be White Sheep who guides us through the first corner. Souza, as the two Ferraris make contact in the first corner. That is Tiago out wide and off. But Benjamin trying to muscle their way down the inside of Kevin Zonneberg. Can the Alpine overtake Tisho? They'll make the lunge into turn 4. The Alpine, an amazing start, 9th up to 5th. As there is even Tisho trying to lunge back down the inside of Zonneberg to make it a defence over that 6th place. But it'll be Kevin Zonneberg who gets the better traction on the exit. Tisho trying to keep their wheels in by any means necessary, even if it means taking that rear wheel off of Zonneberg as they go wheel to wheel through turn 10. Tisho is off in the Ferrari, and that is Zonneberg holding on to that P6 as there's even Christian making the lunge on the Ferrari now. It's only getting worse for the Scuderia as there's even Ben squeezing down the inside, but Tisho holding on as well as they can. Will it be P11 or will it be P12? It will be P11 as White Sheep is starting your second lap nice and clear, 7/10 up.
Yeah, good start there by White Sheep. Immediately getting Seb off the line, but I was just looking at whose debris that might have been that was flying all over the track at the start. I'm pretty sure it was mostly Sam in the Sauber who's dropped down to 20th, which is obviously big for the championship. He's P2 in the championship and he's all the way down in last with half a front wing, so he's going to have to maybe change his strategy, as there's a incident there with Pablo who's losing a handful of places. He's now down to 17th as he battles with Salvo, and they make big contact there, and the Mercedes is round, and his day goes from bad to worse within about 30 seconds of the first issue that he had. But yeah, as I was saying, this is going to be Really interesting to see how Sam plays this race now with that damage. And it's all going to be about damage limitation against White Sheep for the championship, as Ticho and Christian are dueling over P10 right now.
Yeah, that's just been ironed out a bit. T-Show went, "This is my place. Thank you very much. Do not bother trying to fight back." However, who may want to fight back is Seb on White Sheep to the inside in first corner. Lovely execution, but will they be able to hold on? Of course, White Sheep being able to tuck in, get a bit more traction on the exit as Sam is limping down the pit lane. They are most likely looking at an alternate strategy in this race. As you can see, most drivers did start on the mediums. Boom and Nick in the two RBs on the hards. Sam now joining them on that tyre choice, just showing how somewhat unanimous the decision across the field is on what's the best start tyre for this race. However, White Sheep giving it up as Souza sitting there in third, but no real move there to be made of it. As you can just see up and down the field, they're all in that semi-stalemate phase of this race where they all just get into that rhythm, start following one another, trying to stay out of that dirty air while being as close as possible, and then try and make that lunge into the first corner, whilst White Sheep closing in on Seb on the fourth lap. The Mercedes sets your fastest lap so far. White Sheep gets close, just not close enough. You want to be within 3 tenths there, as Ben showing White Sheep how it's done as they overtake Christian into that first turn, but Ivan just tucked in behind Boom and Christian in that McLaren, starting to get a bit all over the back of the Racing Bulls, almost looking like they are a lot more racy on those medium compounds.
Yeah, I think Christian's another guy with damage, which is why he's fallen back from the Ferrari. I was wondering why that was happening, and the Alpine passed him as well, as you got Tiago getting past Salvo, and it's been a pretty ugly day for Sauber so far. But yeah, as you were saying, Racing Bulls not looking as racy as the Williams behind him, who should be able to make a move maybe down into turn 1, with Boom not having the help of DRS, but he has end plate damage as well, so there was obviously a lot of contact on that chaotic first lap, which is really starting to hurt some of these drivers. White
Sheep
up at the front, you got White Sheep there passing Seb for the lead there in his white and pink Haas, and White Sheep retakes control of the race.
Yeah, definitely trying to escape the sheepdog is the best way to put it. White Sheep trying to flog the herd away, as Sam at the back trying to chase them down now. Whether or not the Sauber will be able to do so, we will find out at the end of these 33 laps. Of course, they've opted to change their strategy almost at the first hurdle, which just shows how poorly today has gone. Of course, started 13th for this race, and it's only just gone backwards ever since for that Sauber. But has it been worse than Ferraris? I don't think so. Of course, they both started 4th and 5th, and then they ended up having their own little kamikaze moment between one another.
Yeah, definitely not what you want as teammates. Kind of ruin their races, I think. I mean, I think that's definitely one of the worst things that you can do, and it feels bad as well when you do that. Your own race has been cost by your teammate, especially if it's not your fault. But we'll see if they can do anything throughout the remaining 27 laps of the race, which is a long time. As Christian comes into the pits, he was one of the victims of the first lap.
It's a change in front wing.
His wing. Yep. So hopefully he can get back into this race, maybe do a bit of an undercut, which Sam's looking to do at the moment. But Christian's teammate Zane, who I've seen before from last season, behind another one who was here last season, Zunneberg. But yeah, as you were saying, they're all kind of going into a bit of a train now after the first few laps, not wanting to do anything silly at this point in the race and just manage your tyres and manager warnings as well as Spain is. It's definitely a track you can get a few penalties for track limits in, so they're just going to be managing their own races for the moment.
Yeah, the best way to put it, Spain is rather painful when it comes to track limits. Yes, the pun is intended for you with dad humour in the chat. Feel free to mince me over that one. However, who could be getting minced is White Sheep in a matter of moments' time, as Sieb getting incredibly close into that first corner. Almost wanted to give a little kiss to White Sheep's gearbox as they were going through that first corner, as a bit further back is in fact Diogo Silva getting past Boom, who's now under pressure by Thiago in the Ferrari. They're attempting to do the recovery just like Ferrari have done so many times in real life with Hamilton this year, but all in all, Ferrari just unable to be successful so far this race, as we're already 7 laps deep in the 33. As an update on Sam, he's on the back of Christian. Yes, admittedly, they have both pitted and no one else has, but then for Sam to be, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds back when they pitted on the McLaren, to now be on their back, it does look quite promising for the duration of the race, almost as if the pace is there on the hard compounded tyres, as Sieb rounding out the final corner, heading up towards the first turn on the 8th lap. Can they overtake White Sheep? You can see the Haas going offline, then dragging back across to try and break that toe. The toe luckily wasn't strong enough for the Mercedes to dart past, just like a Silver Arrow does.
Yeah, but it's very close at the front between the Mercedes and the Haas, but Boom just falling down with that damage now. I think I was going to say maybe he should pit, but like the others did, but I feel like he's committed to staying out now, and he's just going to have to stick with it. But he's losing like a position a lap at the moment, with Thiago just getting past him in the Ferrari, and Diogo Silva the lap before that as well. So I think Wessel is going to be the next one to probably capitalise on his wing damage. But yeah, still very close at the front, as we can see, obviously. And it's not just C, because you got Sousa there in the Williams there, and the Aston Martin and the Alpine all there within a second of each other. So if one of the front two make a mistake or come together, then they will be there to snap at the opportunity.
Yeah, one thing about what you said with Boom transitioning to the alternate strategy, let's call it, is it ideal regarding they started on the hards? That's almost shooting them dead on the spot.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of starting on the hards if you're going to pit before at least the half race stage? Because otherwise you've kind of failed your job at managing the first stint successfully. So I think it is a risk Boom is going to be taking. Whether or not it will have long-term benefits, we'll find out. But as quite a few do say, big risk, big reward, I don't think there's much of a reward for the Racing Bulls. Of course, started outside the points today, and for the most part running outside the points and just walking themselves back down that order.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, I did forget that he was on the hard, so I think he's in a very tricky situation, so I think, yeah, he kind of has no choice other than to stay out. Because, I mean, another bad thing in your race, other than colliding with your teammate, can also be starting on those hards and getting involved in something silly like wing damage, and can definitely make your race a lot harder. The Salvo, the reserve for Sauer, is the next one to breeze past Boom, as Thiago gets past Diogo Silva as well for 13th. It's looking like the Ferrari's beginning to do a bit of a comeback.
Yeah, they are trying to combat their way back up that field, but then at the same time you can really just tell from first down to 11th it's just a stalemate. Like, for those watching, you've been looking at this for the last lap or two, in particular Sieb who's only got one car to get by, and that car doesn't have DRS to help him. It's just near enough impossible, showing how much more downforce White Sheep carries in that final sector and the first sector, just able to build up that advantage that gives them that little cushion layer for the start-finish straight, as we are about to go back onto that start-finish straight to see whether or not the Mercedes can get past the Haas this time into the first corner. The Haas dragging off the line, then back onto it as Sieb closes in. Will make a lunge this time round. They'll hold it to the inside. White Sheep holds round the outside, has that inside in turn 2, and that is class defence for the man who knows this championship is his to take with already half a season done. It does look like it's a done deal with Sam down in 20th, and then his closest competitor, who's 18 points behind him, 5 behind Sam, all the way down in P6. He's just walking away as this race is going on.
Yeah, so they've got pretty close that time, to be fair to him, which is kind of the closest he's got since White Sheep 3 took the lead. But I think he's going to have a decent chance every lap if he sticks with them. But I think it's definitely going to get even more interesting when the pit stops come around, and as soon as I say that, White Sheep comes into the pits. So I was going to say maybe Sieb can try and do the undercut on him, but White Sheep reacts first, and Sieb's going to have to put in a good lap and try and stick with White Sheep, because if he gets out of that DRS, it's going to be very tricky for Sieb and the other people near the front to get close to the Haas.
Yeah, the moment Zonnenberg and White Sheep dart into that pit lane is the moment Nick finally turns around and says, you know what, I think I've got the better tyres, and finally overtakes the Aston Martin of Matti Amanga. Of course, he's 6th at the moment, but provisional 8th due to the Haas and the Red Bull pitting. But it's almost as if Zonnenberg wants to follow their championship rival, because they know that the further away they are, both strategy-wise and pace-wise, the worse it's going to get for them. So they kind of want to try and mimic whatever that Haas does, as clearly currently that Haas driver does have the key to success, as behind is Ben, hopefully aiming to be successful on overtaking T-Show in the Ferrari. Ooh. The Alpine getting a bit squirrelish on the exit, didn't look too certain, as Sieb now reacting, same as Mattis, Ben, Zane and T-Show. A big flurry of cars now into the pit lane as Sousa will adopt the race lead here in Barcelona. But if you look further down the field, Sam is only a good 8 or so seconds off of White Sheep. But where will the Haas come out compared to the likes of Sieb? They cross the pit exit line as White Sheep dashes straight by and just holds on against the Mercedes. The undercut didn't really do much, and the overcut also hardly did anything as well, apart from just managing to get the Haas practically a second clear from about 6 tenths up. Minimal gain, but that gain could be massive when it comes to the long term in this race. But Zonnenberg looking extremely racy behind that Aston Martin, of course. Those on the brand spanking new hards having to go through that tyre preparation phase, that good lap where the tyres are freezing its socks off to a point where they have to heat it up and get some life into them. Whereas for Zonnenberg and White Sheep, they've had to go through that trauma. They now just have to pin it down and go from there. So do I expect a move to at least be attempted into that first corner, whilst Mattis has no DRS and Zonnenberg does.
Yeah, and just talking about tyre warming throughout your first lap, Sieb was definitely a victim of cold tyres there, with White Sheep now a second ahead of him, showing that the overcut obviously did not work one bit. But I mean, it was really tricky for Sue because White Sheep he went to pit so late that he couldn't really react and dive in with him, or he might have crashed into the pit lane. But with it being, I'd say it's one of the trickiest pit lanes on the calendar in terms of the entry. But as Benjamin and Mattis Gullet are battling at the moment for PA. Side by side, oh, they make a bit of contact, and the Alpine gets hit by the Aston Martin and Zane. That puts them down to 10th. Not really sure who was at fault there, but anyway. And Seba's lucky that White Sheep is now stuck behind Boom, because he's now able to get within DRS of him. And look at this, as White Sheep trying to go around the outside of the V-carb. And now there is a car in between Seb and White Sheep, and he's not looking to get out of the way yet. He fought White Sheep hard, so we'll see what happens now. But Seb has got a lot of VRS, and he's using a lot of it to his advantage as he goes to the left to try and get past Boom, who has that damage. He's still trying to make his hard strategy work, but Seb is still able to pass him. And now Sousa looking to go around the outside as well with so much more Kvit, but they make contact and Boom is sideways. Zunneberg gets past him, and he's going to have the Aston Martin right behind him as well. But Seb got all that time back to White Sheep, but then getting past Boom is what it was before that, really.
Yeah, Mattis now giving Boom quite a few love taps, almost as if the Aston Martin is attracted to the Racing Bulls drivers. You can just see they keep on trying to push them through the circuit, especially up that hill, as now there's a big old trolley train being recreated by that Racing Bulls, as there's no move down into turn 11 apart from Benjamin on Mattia Manga, the Alpine to the inside, trying to mangle with the Aston Martins. They'll be ahead as there's Mattis holding on the outside against Zane. Zane's going to tuck to that inside on Boom, try and get by, but then again the traction with the racing line just so much stronger, meaning Mattis will hold on as they work their way up towards the first corner. Ben heading down the pit lane in the other Alpine as Mattis to the inside of Boom, and that's them through. Then it's Zane and Benjamin also going, you know what, I want a piece of that cake, as T-Show and Matthew Manga, the two TF10 drivers in opposing teams, somewhat cooperating, not making it too difficult for themselves, as T-Show to the inside of Boom there. Then Matthew Manga using that open door just to reassert themselves, as there's a yellow flag for Nick. I believe that was just a slow moment, having a big correction or whatnot out of turn 9, as then again T-Show and Matthew Manga trying to fight into turn 8 and 9, but the Ferrari will hold on. At least there's one thing that the Tifosi can be happy about.
For sure. Tico in the top 10 for Ferrari at the moment after the bad start, so Ferrari are making somewhat of a recovery, but that was good between the TF10 drivers, and that pack of cars were very close in that sector 1 for a bit of time. And we'll see if they do that again, as now Zane is passing Mattis for P6, and here comes the Alpine as well. It's very close, but only the McLaren is able to sneak through, as Nick remains in the lead. Obviously he hasn't pitted. Both Racing Bulls deciding to go on the hard at the start, and just doing the hard medium instead of the medium hard, but Nick making a mistake, causing the yellow flag, losing about 5 seconds from that, and getting the first track limits penalty of the race. Shows that strategy clearly isn't working for them.
Yeah, you just saw for a brief moment the actual positions gained and lost in this race. Nick's gained 9 places, of course due to that 0 stopper so far, whilst Boom's only gained 4. So it's somewhat been mixed results. Of course, they're still yet to pit, meaning that will probably flip on its head, as Nick has had a big moment and the safety car is out. Everyone drops down, as you can see. There is the Racing Bulls. They entered the pit, whacked off their wheel, and then got reset to the track. But if I'm right, this is the first safety car of the season. So that is all done. As you can see, so many drivers have pitted already in this race, going into the pits, putting on new hards just to try and get that bit of a tyre delta on the likes of White Sheep, Sieb, Souza, Zonnebjerg, Mattis and Ben. So it's all strategy now as Salvo staying out in the Sauber. They're going to be ahead. Could this be a master plan in disguise for the Sauber team? Of course, now allowing Salvo to possibly hold up the field and allow Sam to work their way through.
Yeah, wow. This race is going to take a turn, I think, with this safety car. I mean, first safety car of the season. Shows how mistake-free these very fast drivers are. But Nick, on those old tyres, just making that mistake in the pits. And I did say it's one of the trickiest pit lanes of the calendar, and I think Nick proves that crashing into the pit wall. But really unfortunate for them. It would have been interesting to see where he would have came out on that hard medium strategy. But it is White Sheep who leads, of course. But after the top 7, you have people on the newer tyres, which, although it's not the biggest tyre advantage ever, I think it's definitely going to play a part, especially for Zane, who's at the front of that train on new tyres. I think he's going to be able to get past the likes of Salvo and the Alpine pretty quickly, and maybe a chance of a top 5 this race.
Yeah, it's all kind of now being set up for a massive fight in both the drivers and the constructors, with this safety car McLaren 4 points behind Haas. There's only one Haas in the points, and then there's also one McLaren, but at least Christian not too far back whatsoever. And if we were to say that everyone in the top 6 pits again, or top 7 shall we say, pits again, Christian and Zane will both be in points. Vettel very much in 10th at best. So yeah,
right, hopefully safety car's not out for too long. Just got Boom and Pablo. I'd say the likes of Boom and Sam and the likes of that, I think they've been kind of saved by the safety car, don't you think? The ones who got damage at the start.
yeah. Quite a few drivers got damaged, that's all I remember. However, at the moment we are just slowly getting through this safety car as the lights have turned off is the best way to put it. We will be going back underway, so a cheeky bit of promotion if you'd like an amazing setup produced by quality things. Actually, safety car lights are still on. I don't know why White Sheep dropped. They're now off. No. So my eyes playing tricks on me. As they were off, then they came back on, then they went back off, as they were probably just flicking at me. As we will go underway, but if you want a dream setup, do check out our sponsor Sim Racing Setups for this division and league in general. But White Sheep holding that whole field up. We are about to go racing once again. White Sheep now runs. You can just see a confetti of cars in the background as they work up to the first corner. Mattis already ahead of Zonnebjerg, and Ben also following through on the inside. Zonnebjerg plummeting down. The Red Bull starting to struggle as there is cars literally switching by as there's T-Show. Big moment as Ben dropping down the field. T-Show luckily able to get out of it alive. Nothing made too big out of that as Pablo off into the gravel trap as the cars still throwing fists at each other like they are infants. As there is Sam who's into the wall. Big mishap for the Sauber, and that is major wing damage for the championship contender. But a bit further up the field is Christian trying to go back at it against Thiago. However, for the most part, the drivers well behaved. Maybe not as such for Zane, as they've gone spinning round after going into the front of T-Show. The McLaren down the field. Big upset for the Papaya outfit. A lot more upsetting than what happened in the real life championship. Of course, McLaren being constructors and drivers champions crowned yesterday, but DRS now enabled as they all work their way up towards the first corner. White Sheep leads to Sieb, then Souza. Zunneberg doing okay, holding on to P5, but Sam and Zane both into the pits. Don't know if they will end up committing to the end of this race.
Wow, what a restart. Lots of chaos. I didn't know where to look. But I mean, Zane, I don't know if you saw it, but big hit into that wall on the second DRS straight at the lap. I don't know, he must have got contact by someone as they were all really bunched up in the mid-pack, but that was kind of important, as Zane was that front-running car on new tyres, but wasn't able to really do much with it, and his race basically ends in the wall there. The Sam retires as well. Awful day for the man in second position in the championship, and this gives Zunneberg a chance to get up right close next to him in the championship. And right now it's looking all good for White Sheep. I mean, that restart on Sieb was very good. I mean, he made his car basically a bus in that final bit of the track, and just really caught Sieb by surprise, and he wasn't able to get anywhere near him at the restart. Yeah, let's see what the remaining 11 laps of this race gives us.
Yeah, not much left, as of course, as you said, Sam out of this race. Big hurt for the Saubers Championships, with now Salvo being the best of drivers out on track, which on 8-lap-old hards, not the eldest set of hard compounds on the grid, that of course being White Sheep and Zunneberg with 10-lap-old hards, but it's not ideal with all those drivers in the background with improved tyre compounds. So, as you said, we are going to have to wait and see come the end of this race. But Salvo starting to close up to the back of Kevin Zunneberg. The Sauber could be looking at an attempt for the race, well, not race lead, that's of course White Sheep, but for a top 5 on the 23rd lap of this race. As up towards the first corner you go, as Sieb riding on board with them now. They're closing into White Sheep. They'll look to the inside, go back onto that racing line, unfortunately unable to pull a move off this time.
Yeah, plenty more opportunities for Sieb left, as I'm pretty sure Pablo gets overtaken. Still very close at the front. I'm surprised no one's made a move into this hairpin yet. It's just an ambitious move, with everyone being so close, but maybe we'll see that near the end of the race when people get more desperate. But right now everyone single file and everyone within DRS with each other except for Zane. Very close as usual in F2 here in PSGL, but coming round the windy final sector for another duel between White Sheep and Sieb. Sieb has a lot more ERS to play with than White Sheep, and he looks like he's got a good exit. Gaps under 4 tenths with the DRS. Can Sieb get him? Here he comes, side by side with the Haas. He passes him, and Sieb takes the lead for the first time since the start of the race. The pole sitter is back into the lead.
Yeah, you of course just saw that move, and then at the same time I quickly flicked over to Zane, who had a little spin in turn 9. The McLaren just making their day even worse than it is. They've already pitted since that safety car restart for a change of front wing, and now they've got that gravel all over those tyres, just being a gruesome race as a whole for the McLaren outfit, not being how they would hope for it to go, especially as championship contenders. This is perfect for Haas, as into the pits is Zane. That is the secondary McLaren out of the race, and that's their first DNF of the season with a virtual safety car now out.
Yeah, don't know why he did that when he could have just retired the session, but it's caused the VSC. But it's okay, it's not really going to change anything. with about, how many laps? Let me do the math. About 8 laps of it, 9 laps, something like that.
One or the other. It's not my best of categories when it comes to on the spot. Give me a full sheet of squared paper and I may be able to work out some math. However,
but the Alpines then, which is interesting. Don't know what he's doing as VSE ends. Looks like he's going to go on to another set of hards, but I mean, he's running outside the points anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much for him. But we're underway again, and I think that was kind of good for C, because as soon as he takes the lead, that VSE comes out, kind of a cool down, lets him calm his nerves a little, and it's a pretty big gap to White Sheep now, and maybe Steve just wasn't able to show his potential stuck behind the Haas that whole time, but now that he's free, he's able to push a bit more.
Yeah, it's just going all well for the Mercedes, especially with them being last in championship. They've had 2 double DNFs on the bounce in both Monaco and Austria, and now they've got one driver leaving the race. I do not think it could go much better than that for them. However, it's not too easy for them as much, as I've just been asked for tyres, I'll give you that. But yeah, the Mercedes just continuing on, trying to keep it smooth sailing. They don't want to try too much, make a mistake, as you said, calm your nerves with that VSC. But do you really think Seb has got too high of nerves in this race? They do look quite comfortable, especially when it came to fighting White Sheep.
Yeah, and Seb continuing to maintain that gap to White Sheep now.
Just knocked over a water bottle. Didn't.
No worries at all. We might get a gap there between the top 3 and Mattis Gullet, who just a second behind for a brief time. It's very, very close, and it looks like he is out of DRS, struggling with those old tyres now, and I think that'll give Zunderberg a chance now to get into 4th and give him more points on his hunt towards Sam in the championship. So we've got a yellow, and it's Pablo, and he's off the track. And he's the next one to come into the pits, and that's probably going to be the end of his race.
Yeah, not how the race would want to go for Pablo. That's their 4th.
Salvo losing it, sorry to interrupt, through turn 3, and Ticho was able to pass him, but Salvo's got him back. I don't know if maybe Salvo was hit by the Ferrari, but he's coming back at him at the place where I thought we might see a move, and he's been able to do it. This is very good battling between the Ferrari and one of their engine suppliers, Sauber, who obviously their final game that that Sauber will be in, obviously, as they're becoming Audi, which I'm sad about, because Sauber was one of my favourite teams growing up. But anyway, still another season in PSGL will have Sauber as Salvo, the reserve, currently looking like he could get some points, which hopefully can kickstart the rest of his season as a reserve. The Ferrari's just got past him, but still in P7, and only a few laps left for Salvo to negotiate and get his first point of the season. Am I right? Maybe? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Salvo's picked up 2 points this season, so it'll be a big development on their points haul so far. They came 9th out in Monaco, but if you do remember, 7 cars went out in the same corner in the transition from wet to dry.
Wow.
It was absolute manic there, and of course,
wish I was there for that.
of course, if you're a fan of Monaco, it was the Novelle chicane, that pointy apex there. However, Salvo, of course, as you said, did attempt that move on T-Show, almost tried stealing as a customer from the supplier, but didn't manage to steal any points that time round, whilst a bit further back you have got Thiago and Christian still going at it. They're getting a bit aggressive with one another, as Christian tried looking to the inside, just didn't have the room and speed to overtake in the end.
Yeah, that was interesting from Christian. I didn't expect him to go for that, but he did, as we now got Mattia Manga past Salvo. Hopefully we don't give him a bit of a commentator's curse now when he somehow doesn't end up getting points. But he's lost another place, 4 to go. On some of the oldest tyres in the pack, with 15 laps compared to 11 with the people around him who pitted under the safety car. So it's going to be tricky, but hopefully he can hold on to a few points.
Yeah, if Salvo does score points, I'll give him a free 5% discount code to Sim Racing Setups, which of course is one of our sponsors. But yeah, I don't know if he will be able to hold on. Those hards starting to look quite a bit aged. However, you can also see up the front end of the field, those leaders are doing a good job at holding on against the likes of the Ferrari or T-Show, but at the same time they aren't really running away. So if Mattia and Salvo can both match pace and catch up to the back of this group, maybe Salvo could over double their points tally for round 7 in a week's time at Silverstone.
Yeah, and I was just watching Christian get past Thiago for P12, but of course he does have that pen. But yeah, there's Salvo's nearly round and he's out of the points now. He's lost about 4 positions there. There's now Christian's trying to go around the outside of Benjamin, but Salvo just struggling with his tyres, and that's the second time he's nearly been round, and this time was the worst, and that is really annoying for Salvo because it looked like he was going to be on for the second points finish of the season, but it's just gotten away from him with the others around him being on better tyres.
Yeah, that is heartache for the Sauber team. This will be their second pointless event this season. The only other time was Belgium, where they picked up a double DNF, as today Salvo running in a lonely 12th as a result, but lucky for it not to have been any worse, as unfortunately we did end up casting a little curse on the Salvo. Of course we were both hoping for points and that them not to plummet too far down. Who is plummeting is Diogo Silva. However, they've just dropped to P9, as even made a fairly easy move into that first corner.
Yeah, good move there by Ivan, as Diogo Silva will be having the same problem as Salvo on his 13-lap-old mediums, which will be obviously wearing more than the hards. As Christian, who's been making some ambitious moves recently, makes another one on Benjamin. Side by side still, but it looks like Christian has got the move done, and yes he is, he's into the points as the McLaren. Good move there, and a decent recovery from the wing damage he got early on in this race, as Salvo struggles even more. He's off the track, Ferrari gets past him, Boom gets past him, and Wessel nearly looking for it as well, but those tyres are well and truly cooked for Salvo, which is unfortunate, but still a big fight going on for the remaining points positions, as Sieb still out front with 2 laps left, as Salvo's off again, and he's the next one to peel into the pits. But as I was saying, Sieb remains in the lead, as you were just talking about a Sauber double DNF in Belgium, and I don't know if you want to count with the 90% rule, but technically their second double DNF of the season.
I do believe it does get labelled a DNF. I'm of course not a PSGL guru, unfortunately, so I can't confirm that. However, from what I've seen in the past, typically places like PSGL and WOR do bag a double DNF, as their T-Show having a big moment with the Aston Martin of Mattia Manga, as the Aston Martin finally back up into P6 They are absolutely loving this race in Spain. They're currently 9th in the Constructors on only 17 points. And now they've got Mattis and Mattia both sitting in the top 6, which is a fairly healthy sum of points. 13 to go their way. Of course, this adapted point system grants 8 for 4th and 5 for 6th. As Tisho hoping to try and take that one extra point back up towards first corner. Mattia fends to the inside. Tisho round the outside, as this is really the last opportunity for the Ferrari contact, as it's going to be Mattia who will hold on against the Ferrari.
Yeah, and White Sheep got very close to CB, looked for it into turn 1 briefly, but didn't go for it in the end. Souza, though, all over White Sheep. Well, maybe it's going to be worse than P2 for them. I mean, look how close to Williams is. He's got more ERS. But yeah, very good result for Aston Martin as well, as Christian makes another good move on Diogo Silva this time, who's on those mediums, whose tyres are well and truly gone, just like Salva's were with those mediums, now on 15 laps, but looks like the top 3 is going to remain the same. Yeah, mid-pack still looking interesting though.
Yeah, but for the final time this race, it'll be Sieb who rounds out the final corner. The Dutchman started on pole, had the challenge of White Sheep, but it'll be Sieb who wins in Barcelona, followed by White Sheep, Souza, Mattis, Kevin, Mattia, Tisha, as you can just see all the cars roaring across the line. And then we have a good 12-second delay for the Alpine of Ben. It's just been a hurtful race for that Alpine who will cross the line in P15, but it's a Dutch 1-2 on the grid, and then they converted it to a 1-2 post race, and for White Sheep's sake, a 4th second place finish of the season for the man leading this championship. As you can now see, the drivers jumping around on the podium, celebrating a amazing event in Barcelona, as it's 2 Dutchmen accompanied by a Brazilian, who definitely all deserve that top 3 here today. As your race win, of course, C with the fastest lap going to Ben, driver of day being Diogo Silva. Boom, has your most overtakes, and your cleanest driver was labelled White Sheep according to this game. But here are your final results. It's Sieb who wins by half a second over White Sheep, and only a second over Souza. Then it's Mattis in 4th, Kevin Zonneberg in 5th. Not ideal for the man 3rd in the championship, while Mattia Manga down in P6. Tisho in 7th with even 8th, Diogo Silva 9th, Benjamin 10th, Tiago 11th, Boom 12th, Vessel, Christian and Ben round off those finishers. Then it's Salvo, Pablo, Zane, Sam, and I forgot who was P20, but they all failed to finish. So yeah, that is a fairly hectic race to say the least settled here in Barcelona. What's your thoughts, Alfie?
Pretty good race, to be fair. Those bits where didn't know who's going to win, Sieb or White Sheep, or maybe someone else when that safety car came out. Obviously the tyre advantage wasn't enough though for the ones who did pit. Was very exciting in the midfield all throughout with the battling. Yeah, another good PSF2 race, and hopefully the next one can be just as good, if not better, than what we've seen today.
Yeah, that was just an outstanding event to say the least. So much action up and down the field. It's so unfortunate that we couldn't have the legendary commentator of Nathan, but I think just as good here today from us too, doing a good job with last minute arrangements. However, again, as I said, that was quite monumental in terms of the championship. White Sheep is 2nd place, marking it 4 in 6 races. He's officially got more, well, 2nd places than anyone else has wins. So that is just saying enough for his hopes in terms of the constructors. Haas excelling away from McLaren and Sauber, both teams leaving with minimal points. Sauber 0, McLaren I think only bagged 1 or 2 in the end, and then also Aston Martin that 4th and 6th. Massive gain in the constructors. However, what do you think we should be looking out for when it comes to Silverstone in a week's time?
White Sheep, I mean, he's only been off the podium one race so far this season, and I'm sure he's going to keep up the pace into the next race in, where was it again? Let me look.
Silverstone.
Silverstone. And yeah, I mean, hopefully we can still get a good title fight despite White Sheep's excellence. Maybe Sam bouncing back from this poor race in Spain, but only time will tell.
Yeah. As a whole, yeah, that was amazing. Thank you for joining me in the commentary box here today, Alfie. It was much fun commentating alongside you, but if you haven't noticed, based off this player menu, Salvo's still in the lobby. I think he heard about me giving that code for sim racing setups, and I still want it. So if you go to checkout and put in code PSGL, you'll get a 5% discount on all setups in which you purchase. But thank you to, of course, Sim Racing Setups for sponsoring PSGL here, PSF2 here today, and for the 6th time this season, that is it all wrapped, and we'll see you for more racing in a week's time at Silverstone. Again, thank you, Alfie.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.
Yep, goodbye.